As humanity traverses the collective dark night of the soul, we came together and decided to step up amongst so much insanity, to be an authentic, heart-centered and unified voice in sharing our personal stories and experiences, with the hope of inspiring and awakening others into their true nature as the eternal God, light and love that we are. In this critical time of evolution, the time is now to choose peace and harmlessness, to seek alignment with truth and courage. The time is now to cultivate our soul, to understand our multi-dimensional selves, whilst guarding and protecting our minds. Let us break down the walls of separation and classification. Let's reconnect our hearts to the oneness. Will you take steps to heal yourself, to choose pro-human values? Our inner work is to free ourselves from pain and delusion, so we can live with clarity and coherence, in service to others and our communities. What is the agenda of the anti-human controllers? What is the agenda of divide and conquer? Imagine what life could be like right now if you lived on this planet in harmless actions. How can we stand up for our inherent human rights? Can we do the right thing in the face of tyranny, in reclaiming our sovereign freedom, demanding truthful information and full disclosure? For one and for all, we are the Truth Pulse. Hi everybody, welcome to the Truth Pulse. This week we have a lovely speaker. She's called Chastity, and I'm just going to do a little introduction to Chastity, and then we're just going to open up and we're going to talk about our topic of today, which is the Megiddo Archetypal Battle. So Chastity, she never thought she would be sharing her views publicly and sense of knowingness about the Christ spirit, humanity and the infiltration our planet has gone through. She feels that the time has come that we stand up and unite our consciousness and bring to the forefront unity consciousness with universal laws intact. Understanding the significance of the awakening spirit and how to navigate such changes are important in moving humanity forward into a reality we have not experienced for thousands of years. Our galactic memories are returning as Mother Sophia returns to heal the monsters she was forced to birth. We are connecting with our true God selves as sovereign beings. Embodying the true self will take time. This is not a race, but rather a series of choices to make. A realization that there is an exopolitical agenda and negative interference on this planet to keep us inside a frequency fence. We are multidimensional electromagnetic beings having a human experience. So today we're going to talk about the Megiddo Archetypal Battle, and we're also going to talk about gang stalking. So I've got some notes here about this Megiddo Archetypal Battle. So people might have heard of it actually if you're a Christian or if you've read the Bible. The Megiddo has come to represent the battle between anti-Christ or anti-human entities and Christ forces or human beings, as the final showdown that occurs for complete control on the earth or the material plane, as it symbolizes the final battle for control over the earth and humanity. The book of Revelation designates Armageddon as the assembly point in the apocalyptic setting of God's final battle against evil on the earth. Evangelical Christians believe that this physical location will be the site of the final battle between Jesus Christ and Satan, as it is outlined in the book of Revelation. What's your share, Chastity?
Oh, my share. Oh my gosh.
What is your thinking?
Thank you for having me, first of all. I'm honored to be here. So thank you so much for the invite and for allowing me to share and collaborate with you guys. I think this is You're doing beautiful work, and I'm honored to be part of it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Wow. The Megiddo Battle, Revelations. So I grew up Catholic. So there's a lot tied into the fear of, like my mother, for instance, really was tied into those dark mother energies. And there was a lot of fear tactics, and they were around what we're going to expect at the end of the world, because Revelations, the book of Revelations, says this, that, and the other thing. And being a child that has come into this world at the very least partially awakened, it was a really big challenge from day one to really suss out what the truth is and what the truth isn't. Because when you hear something that is not the truth, then for me, it brought up ideas, memories, and confusion. Something that's really fascinating, my mom was really young when she got pregnant with me. And so when I say really young, I mean she was 16 years old. So my mother, I mean, this goes back generations, you know, and I'll try to be brief. But my mother actually was visited by a being when she was pregnant with me. And this being said to her, this child is going to be ours. She doesn't belong to you. And my mom had said to this being, fine, you can have her. Well, my mom didn't understand, and still today doesn't understand, those kinds of exchanges are verbal contracts. And so essentially she had given my soul willingly, instead of being my caretaker. You know, we become stewards of our children. When we have our children, we then steward them. And my mother had given that right away. And so my whole life, what I've been doing is studying everything and everyone around me, and have been challenged in ways from the Antichrist, and stalked by a third hierarchy demon whom my mother gave me over to, and his name is Azazel. So I spent a lot of time really understanding who and what Azazel is in these fallen angelics, which is also a fallen level of human consciousness, right? So really going in and understanding my life through the eyes and ideas of always being battled by demonics, always being able to see when other people, what is a possession, when is somebody being stalked. It's really crazy. I have many stories, but even just recently, as in 2 days ago, I almost thought I wasn't going to be able to make it on your guys's show. I came down with a slight headache, and that headache actually turned into waves. So, you know, for those of us who have had experienced labor pains, you know, like the waves, they come up, like, you know, it's coming up, the pain is going to come, and then it goes back down. So what had happened to me is I was getting these, it started with a headache, and then this wave and this would come up of extreme pain that I couldn't make sense of, because the pain didn't feel like pain in my body. And so what my guides had shared with me is it was planetary pain. So we were purging, I was purging aspects of these darker hierarchies of this particular battle that we're going through, right? And so it would come up in my body and my whole body would convulse and like it was shaking uncontrollably. And then I would cry because it was so painful and shielded from a lot of the pain. But then what I was able to see was interesting, and they said it was called a gravitron. And so I actually looked it up, and thank goodness for the Ascension glossary. Anytime they give me a name, I tend to be able to find it. So I looked up what is the gravitron? And I could actually see it. It was a machinery, it was an architecture of energetic forces. And the gravitron is part of the beast machine, which of course is directly connected to this AI weaponry that is being used for the Megiddo battle, for the Antichrist battle against the Christ consciousness. So as we are raising our consciousness and we are embodying and becoming that risen Christ, right? The Christ is rising in us. We're really being challenged and forced, and some of us are purging planetary pain and traumas, and then I can go into so much more, but I'm even having like timeline shifts, and timelines on top of timelines are happening, and I'm witnessing them at the same time. I don't know, do you guys have, what are you guys experiencing? Because I could go on and on. I'm a talker, so.
Oh, that's brilliant. Thank you.
I think it's interesting because maybe we can just focus on you for 5 seconds, because you've mentioned a few very interesting things that I think maybe for our listeners will be very interesting to kind of just put a little marker. The first thing you said is that when your mother was pregnant, the being visited and said, "This child is mine." And we talked in our previous podcasts about the bindings. And this is like a classic example. I mean, this is a very kind of highlighted example because not many people perhaps aware, and not many people are visited by beings who just so openly tell them this child is mine. But this, you know, this was just, I'm just trying to sort of say to the listeners that this is how the bindings happen. And then you said, well, and my mom said, yeah, you can have her. And here we go, another verbal consent. So this is kind of, we give this verbal consent.
Yeah, and we give it unknowingly. It happens all the time. It happens in the smallest little ways. There are oftentimes, you know, and it sounds like we're going to get into gang stalking later, but it's, you know, when we hear things often, even in our own mind, and it sounds like our own voice, when we don't understand that something that we hear that could be, even if it's our own voice, something that we hear that could be, that's negative, or even if it's as simple as talking down to yourself, oh, I feel awful today, or oh, look at that poor person over there, they're suffering, right? And then we identify like that. But when we get into that lower level of consciousness, we then are in agreement to that, and then we're feeding that darkness, we're feeding that, for lack of better term, negativity, from my perspective. But then we think oftentimes that it's us, that it's in our own minds, that it's us saying these things, or it's us feeling these things. And oftentimes that's just not even, most oftentimes, especially when it's a lower vibration, it's not organic to us. It's not authentic to us. And these beings, recently for me, because I'm having these timelines, because we're purging so much, and I have really worked hard, and it's what I work with other people, is learning how to recognize something that is not authentic to you. So recognizing what fear is, right? What are we afraid of? And for me, once I was able to recognize even just the thought process, a negative thought comes up, right? This is something that's so simple. A negative thought comes up and I recognize it and go, okay, this is not me, because this is not organic to humanity. This is not the Christ, right?
Right.
And so when we're able to start to recognize that and look at it when it comes up, you can then start to see the schisms. You can kind of see that that matrix is going to start to fall apart, because if you're not holding it and you're not giving it value, it literally just disappears. And it's interesting because then you don't feel. I remember one time I woke up and someone had said something to me or done something. I don't remember exactly what the experience was, but said something that would normally have made me feel jealous and angry. And it was said to me, and I didn't feel like anything. I thought, oh, well, that's strange. How come I don't have that anger? How come I don't have that, where'd that comforting feeling of reaction go, right? And it was like, oh, it's because I had spent so much time witnessing it as it would come up so many times, right? And then recognize it, saying, you are not, this is not me, this is not authentic to me, or these are old memories, or this used to serve me and it no longer serves me. These are some things I've said before. And then it like breaks away. For me, I can see it like break away in little particles, or sometimes holographic images will just, they just disappear. They just fall down and disappear. So what, has been happening, lately is, because it's not, working in real time, because if I'm able to stay in this 0 point, if I'm able to stay in the now moment, it's almost like I'm invisible, right? And so, you can kind of see what's happening around you and outside of your protection. And so what has started happening for many people now, is old timelines and old memories are being brought up. So when I was a child and I was trying to suss out, and this is something that Azazel and his faithful counterpart, Lilith, and you can call her the Black Lilith, you can call her whatever you want, but they indoctrinate children very young, going back to bindings, and they do that through SRA torturing. They do that through sexual abuse and other things. So it's instilling in a child at a young age that somehow it dims the light of the Christ, and then you end up being dependent upon the Antichrist. I don't know if I'm explaining that very well, but it becomes a comforting feeling because it's all you end up knowing. And so you live in fear and not able to express yourself for fear of more torture, if that makes sense. So they've been pulling out, I actually got a phone call from my mom a few months back, and she said, do you remember, and then she had my brother call me as well, do you remember that story I told you? And then you said that there was a being that you could hear through a recording. I used to hear, them come through recordings all the time. Like we used to do cassette tapes, right? And so I would record music, and on that music, I could actually hear messages come through, which was really rather creepy. But as a child, I was fascinated by it, right? Because it was like, I knew, my inner self knew, this is what I'm here to study, right? I didn't know what it meant, but now I do, right? I'm here to study the Antichrist, and I'm here to call it out, and I'm here to raise awareness for that. And so what they started doing is going through, I have children, right? So they work through my children, they work through my animals, they work through, I've lost a relationship due to this. And it is, you know, they're going to try and hit you where it hurts. And when you hold that loving, when you can see, especially, it's actually, well, it's nefarious, but it's also if we can hold that love and realize this is a lot of fallen human consciousness and the torture that we've been through as a species, and hold that love, then it doesn't really harm us the way that we fear it can harm us, right?
Thank you for that information, Chastity. That was bringing up some memories about when you had first talked about the neutral witnessing, and then you had finished with saying holding that love. It reminded me of my journey with feeling exactly that, you know, these forces taking us out of our center, taking us away from our Christ identity. And you identify with that. I identified with that. And for the longest time, and I went through stages to offer a slightly different perspective, but similar. I went through stages of feeling, out of sorts and just spacey and unaware, and then starting to awaken. And then I became, there's the cosmic rage came on, and then the anger, and wanting and needing to express that. And then, however, after that stage, that brought back a lot of pieces and fragments, and I reclaimed my power with that to say no and to set the boundaries, because the boundaries weren't there. So with all of this, this dark force happening and the infiltration into our consciousness, this is what I experienced in having to become angry and set the boundaries. But then coming to the understanding and working on the neutral 0 point and bringing in the love and holding that neutrality. And as you had said, Chastity, watching it kind of just, there's nothing for it to hold on to. It just kind of, it kind of fades out. And then with my personal experience too, dealing with possession, there's been this one particular stalker entity that has been in my field since childhood. And I noticed that it was, again, a process of setting the boundaries and taking back my power, but also I'll sense this entity, and it's male. It's has some human components, it feels like, but also negative alien components. Haven't quite figured it out yet. And I've gotten to the point now where I'll feel it come into the field through a dark portal that hasn't been healed yet, and often through my throat area. But if I am able to hold the higher frequencies, which I can often nowadays, it neutralizes it, and it just can't hold on. So I wanted to add that perspective.
Thank you. I think that's beautiful. Those the dark portals, they're so unpredictable because anything can come in, and when you can almost, once you get more and more comfortable with holding neutrality, right, you can actually feel in your energy field if something is weakened or has been opening or is opening up, right? So you can you can feel it, because it's like, I do massage therapy, right? And so it's called, when we talk about pushing one spot of the body on the muscle, right? It moves, it's called tensegrity, right? You can't touch one spot on something without it shifting and moving the entire structure, right? And so when you can start to really feel your body, and that means your light bodies that are out, right? You can feel when something starts to come in and poke it, right? And so you go, oh, what's that? There's something out there, right? And so I have found immediately calling in the Celestine fire just to hold space for a minute, like just to hold, you know, if there's anything weakening or whatever until I can take a look at it. That has been very helpful. And that's like a white gold powder. And it's really very powerful. But the dark portals, interesting, Sonia, I wonder if it happens, you know, if you're seeing that with other people, because when other people don't know black hole entities and black hole portals are real, right? It sounds sci-fi, you know, but when you watch this happen to me, I'll just super brief, my partner, was weakened and completely taken over. I would call it a partial possession. And you know, coming down to lay in to go to bed one night, 3 times, there was like maniacal laughing, and I knew instantly. I knew right away, because when the bedroom door opened, the energy shifted in the room, and I thought, holy, what in the world is in this space? And it wasn't even in the space, it was in his body. And the I was prompted to from my guides, the guardians, to not react. And had I because they weren't able to get to me any other way, I wasn't reacting. I wasn't moving out of 0 point, and it was pissing them off, right? So they're coming to try other ways. So went through him, literally laid down next to me and said, I effing hate you. 3 times, waiting for my response. And my partner at the time remembers a little bit, but not really, right? Like just has kind of like this faint idea of, you know, I think I thought that, but I don't think I said that. Like, I don't know, like, so there was no memory, no comprehension of what had happened. It did raise fear in me. It raised it right up. Like I could feel it all go warm in my body. And then I thought, nope. I'm just going to look at this. I'm going to bring that back down, and I'm just going to very calmly leave the space. And that's what I did. I very calmly left the space. I didn't interact with it once, meaning I didn't make eye contact. I didn't say anything. I didn't do anything. I just calmly left the space. He fell asleep. The thing left. And it's scary when you see them go through other people, right? Because when it's in you, you go, oh, okay, that's me, right? Like I can control myself. But when you see it in other people, right? That's some scary stuff. We don't think about it. It happens, you know, teachers. I know you guys have talked about it. Happens, they can come through teachers to get at star seeds and indigos. They come through parents, they come through partners, they come through our children, they come through our pets, right?
So Chastity, again, I'm thinking, because a lot of our listeners may not even be aware about this at this stage. How was it for you to, I mean, you already answered this, but maybe just reiterate again. So the first stage is to recognize that potentially it's a possession in another person or in oneself. Yes, to recognize these forces. And you mentioned Azazel, yes, you mentioned and Lilith, yes, and this is the 3rd hierarchy, fallen. Can you maybe expand a little bit on this hierarchy so people could start maybe at least questioning and thinking, is this possibly a possession? Am I dealing with a semi-possessed person, or is it something trying to get through me? I mean, if you don't, I mean, it's just like for us all, and I know there are like different hierarchies, only if you know.
Yeah. What I think a lot of us, when we're seeing these kinds of things coming through people, I find that it's easier for me to remember that I'm trying to find like the right words to put all of this together. It is a human consciousness, right? So there are a lot of, to me, it looks like when we're in the astral realm. So the astral realm is the fourth dimension. And I think that our consciousness spends a lot of time there. It's where we can go through dream time. It's where things kind of latch on as we're coming in and out of what I call like our system, the system. And it kind of opens up, and we have no idea how to like close it down. So we are there. I'm seeing when we go into the first, second, and the lower aspects of self. Okay, so these are the lower aspects of the body, the first, second, and third chakras, I guess, if you will, right? This is where all these different things get put into us, all these different implants, pain. This is the pain body, this is, but then they come in like through our heart center, right? And they kind of like pull things down through our heart and then like anchor it into the lower aspects of self that they have created the distortion in. And so it's easy for fallen human consciousness to possess, because I feel like it's closest to how we recognize the self, if that makes any sense. It feels more human. They're more human, loosely I'm saying human. Jealousy, fear, anger, wrath, greed, right? These are things that year after year after year, thousands of years that we have been trained to participate in. So we don't know anything different, and so they can keep coming through and anchoring in. They feed through our pain. So when we're not recognizing that pain and we're not clearing that out, that's how they come in and anchor in. I hope I'm making sense. Sometimes I'm kind of all over, but
yeah, well, it's very helpful, because as I said, a lot of people, for some people, it will be like a new thing. People don't ask themselves this question. Like you said at the beginning, a thought comes in, oh, it's my thought. It's me who is thinking that, but it's not. So it's very good what you mentioned at the beginning, to start asking and recognizing, and also bindings. You see, your mother, a lot of us have these bindings and we are not even aware of it. Yes.
right.
So this is another. So maybe now from listening to this, maybe we could all start asking, I mean, is this a binding? Is this an entity potentially? Who is owning me? Who has put a tag on me? Like you were tagged almost by these entities. Just last question. How was it for you to be a child who has been given in bindings to these creatures? Your mom just basically signed you over to them. You can have her. How was it for you? Because maybe some listeners could relate to your experience growing up like this, with like having these entities owning you.
Yeah. Interesting.
I mean, brief. If you could sort of give some examples so that people could relate to them. Yeah.
Yeah. What I found interesting is, well, I don't even know if I know how to, I could always see, it was almost like I never knew who to trust. As a child, I never knew who to trust. And so, but I could see through, behind someone's eyes, I could see if they were possessed. And it would be like a normal person looking at you, but behind their eyes, you see something else. So when I and you can see this, gosh, this, I mean, all of these topics and things, they just layer on top of each other. But it's, I could just see, I knew. And then I thought, oh boy, here we go again. Another person that's going to make me feel tight. I feel tight around people, you know, or like like I would go really, really small, right? So it really, because I wanted to be invisible. So I was quiet and observing, scared, right? But for what reason? Not scared as in shivering in a corner, but like walking into a room and feeling small all the time. Because I thought someone was going to take from me, you know, and that goes into, you know, being handed over for sexual abuse and, you know, things like that. And so I don't know if that answers, I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah,
But
well, yes, sorry.
no, go
Yeah.
ahead.
Yeah, well, because example of how these entities, I mean, they claimed you, and then obviously they had you, and they had obviously harassed you and groomed you for a specific, like you said, they needed you for a specific purpose, probably the food, the loosh, you know, whatever it is that they needed from you to provide them with. Yes, so thank you. You've sort of, so your fear, your doubt, you know, not trusting anyone, this is all this kind of installation of that kind of mindset to make you scared, to make you not trusting in yourself, not trusting in others, scare you, you know, maybe sexually, have various sexual kind of things happen to you. And
there's something in the human, in the fallen angelics, they create something called shadow beings or shadow creatures. And a lot of people have been terrorized by shadow creatures. And so this is an example. Some people don't see them, right? So I can give you an example. Like I could see them, and I have several times when I was younger been pinned down. One time in particular, I was pinned down by a shadow creature. It was ugly as all get out. It's all of human consciousness, like the ugliness, all of the savage aspects of humanity, and all of the darkest things. And it would raise my fear. It would feed off the luge, like you said. And then I would shout. One time in particular, I shouted out for my mom. And I said, Mom, Mom, because I was scared. I wanted help. I was trapped. I was literally pinned down. And my mom said she never heard me. But when I called out for her, it had said to me, your mother can't hear you. And even if she could, she wouldn't come and help you anyway. And so these are the types of things. So that's the type of voice you might hear in your own head. You might not see and experience it the way that I did. However, you may have that self-doubt of, why would somebody want to come and help me? Why would anybody want to spend time with me? Because what am I worth? Right? It's the same thing. You're just not experiencing that torture aspect. You're not able to see, but someday you will. And hopefully it's not what you'll be seeing, but it's that self-doubt. It's that worth. What am I worth? Why would anybody want to help me? Why would anyone want to hire me? Think you have a new job, you know? And it's the same thing. It's the exact same thing.
Yes, it's almost like uploading this inferior type of thought forms into you that will feed and creating that negative ego construct unknowingly. Yes, feeding all this inferior, I'm worthless, who will hire me, I don't trust anyone, all these kind of like beliefs that then become, or you think it's you, but obviously it's not. It's all been groomed from a very young age.
Yes, pulling you further and further and further away from the Christ, right? Mm-hmm. Further away from your true light. And that's their goal. That's their goal, is to create that split in us, so we can never bring our masculine and feminine together and become the Christ itself. We never get to create that union and shine, right? And remember
And that's the Megiddo Archetypal Battle, right? In a nutshell. That's what it's about, preventing us from, you know, if we were to sum up, you know, the Megiddo Archetypal Battle, wouldn't you, or would you say that that would be a good summation in preventing, you know, the Christ light from flourishing and the hierogamic union? And there's been this constant battle back and forth with these antichrist beings and the Christed beings.
Yeah.
I mean, do you have any, or Linda or Trinity or Chastity, does anyone have anything to say in wrapping up or in helping to further understand how this all ties into the Megiddo Archetypal Battle for our listeners?
The only thing that I can say is the deeper we are into our negative ego or the negative ego constructs, so, you know, these are the lower aspects of human consciousness that they feed into. It's the 3D world that we live in, right? These are the dense realities that create the holographic particles to become matter, and that's what we see and experience, right? So when we are completely separated, and they keep us separated from that hierogamic union, like you say, Sonia, it anchors in that beast machine that they had originally put in to the planet to throw us off. So the more of us that are split like this, the better it is for them, because they're anchoring in their stronghold, right? So now the star seeds, I mean, we're waking up and we're pulling the plug on everything, going, everybody's got to wake up. Like we got to wake up here, you guys, because we need to shift. You know, the planet is moving into territory it's not been in yet, right? We don't have a choice but to ascend, right? So we might as well just start waking up as many people as possible. And once we can unplug them from that beast machine, right, then we start to go and get back on track. At least that's how I see it.
Well
yes,
said.
and it's also, yes, very, very well said. Just to add that, yes, it's also an individual process. So it's like, you're right, waking up and having and making an effort to wake up as well, and look into the ego and develop the sort of self-awareness, and because it's like almost like as an individual, it's a personal and impersonal. The journey is on micro macro, so it's like a call for everyone to say, hey, I want to look at this. I don't want to be scared anymore. There are these forces, and I'm going to look into them and identify them, call them out, neutralize them, learn about ascension, learn about this neutralizing the 0 point, masculine, feminine. Yes, because that's why they're afraid of us merging, like you said very well, Chastity. They are terrified of that, because if we merge, we are like perfect zero balance point and become invisible, become immediately lifted, different frequencies. So we've got to work for it. Yeah.
We can't be seen in 0 point. Can't be touched, right? They can't hurt us there. They can stalk us all they want. They can watch us. But they can't. It's like they look and they can't really see you. It's not until they've done something or we remember something that's still attached to our lower body that pops us online. And they're like, oh, there you are. And it's like, oh, I better get back into that 0 point because I don't want you to see me, right?
Yeah.
Yes, and this is where the shadow body healing, now all of us, you know, everybody needs to look at that, because they can connect to our shadow and turn the Megiddo on ourselves. So if our shadow is not cleared, we'll be fighting our shadow within ourselves. Perfect for them. They'd love it.
Good point,
so we
Trinity.
need to, so it's like, okay, I'm not going to fight my shadow because you're going to get loose from me. With you, I'm going to transform my shadow by my awareness and what Chastity, what we're all saying, you know, by this 0 point non-engagement. Perfect example you gave, such a beautiful example, when you did not engage with that entity. With your, I mean, they wanted you to just lash out or get somehow, no, you just like, I'm leaving this space. And that's exactly what we all need to do, you know. So thank you. That was beautiful how you
You're welcome.
gave that example. So are we good to go for the next point? Or what are we? Where are we moving from here? If nothing else to add, thank you. So far, so good.
I've still got workmen making an absolute noise. That's why I'm on mute at the moment. So apologies for that. They're drilling away still. I thought they would have been done by now. So yeah, I'll just got to hang in there and listen. I don't want to just.
It's good.
So where are we at with the podcast now as far as, are we segueing into gang stalking now? We have a big piece to cover with that. We're all going to share on that. Or are we still within the Megiddo Battle section?
I think we could move on to the gang stalking, because I think unless anyone else wants to add anything, I think we summarized, gave good examples. So.
Well, if we feel like we are complete with that, thanks so much, Chastity, for sharing your personal experiences with that. And we got to know you a little bit better. I have a lot of questions for you. I like listening to all of your experiences. It's quite informative.
Yeah, thank
and
you.
I can relate to a lot of what you're saying with these dark forces.
Yeah. Tons of fun, right? you know what's so fun? It took me a while to understand. I have a 22nd birthday, 22. So I'm a master builder. It took me a while to understand what does that mean. But I'm also a double Gemini, which goes right into Megiddo Battle, which goes right into Family of Michael stuff, right? I know this is kind of all over the place, but just like when I go back and look at all the things of like how we're actually built, you know, and what do all these things mean for each of us, I find it very fascinating.
I do too, yeah.
Yeah.
I think those are signposts. I mean, we've played around a little bit with that, haven't we, Linda and Trinity? We've talked about our, what was the one thing that we did? Our life path numbers. We were talking about that, and
different totem animals.
Animal
yeah,
totems.
like
we talked about that. Yeah.
Beautiful. Very
like sacred geometry, yes, like platonic
yes.
solids, you know, all that. It's very interesting how the sound and light could then become a platonic solid, which is a specific combination, and we all are made of that. It's just like, and it's like a fingerprint. Everyone is unique.
Yeah.
So it's like, whoa, is it really? Is it us? You know, really? Wow. Yeah. Okay.
Well, now we're into, if we could move on to the next section, we wanted to talk about gang stalking. And I thought that I could provide a definition about gang stalking. And I wanted to then maybe get a bit of clarification if Linda's able to get online. I know that she has construction workers there, but she can provide us with a little bit more of an explanation of what a dark portal is. After that, because we're going to be talking about dark portals in more depth. So I thought maybe a little more explanation on what that is. And then I wanted to give some examples. I have quite a few examples to briefly run down what gang stalking is and my experiences with gang stalking to help trigger the memories in all of us, you know, here on this panel today, and also our listeners, and open up the floor for discussion for all of us to share, you know, about our experiences with gang stalking, something that's very real, that's happening right now. So before I get into that or any further with that, let me just give a definition of what gang stalking is. And I found this very I would say, a good quote that helps to explain what gang stalking is. It's from Andy Lewis, and his website is targetedindividuals.com. And from his website, this quote is, "Organized stalking is a form of terrorism. It's used against an individual in a malicious attempt to reduce the quality of a person's life. So they will have a nervous breakdown, become imprisoned, institutionalized, experience constant mental, emotional, or physical pain, become homeless, commit suicide. And this is done using well-orchestrated accusations, lies, rumors, bogus investigations, setups, framings, intimidation, overt or covert threats, vandalism, thefts, sabotage, torture, humiliation, emotional terror, and general harassment. It is a ganging up by members of society who follow an organized method and participate in systematic terrorizing of an individual." Now, to me, gang stalking involves all of those things, but it also includes the imposter spirits. Okay, so when he is saying members of the community, okay, this could be the dark portal members of the community doing this to a person. Okay, to me, what's behind all of it is the negative alien agenda beings. This is human or non-human beings. This is our dark forces. These could be our Draconians, Anunnaki, Greys, Belials, Black Suns, Leviathans, Brotherhood of the Snake, Dragon Moth, etc. So I wanted to make that part clear in adding that to the definition as part of who's doing the terrorizing. And to me, gang stalking can feel like someone's under a black magic curse or spell due to the relentless sabotage and attacks and the string of bad luck. And is that Lulu? I just saw Lulu's head pop up. Hi, Lulu. Lulu is her beautiful, beloved feline companion. There she is. Oh, so cute. She says, yes, look at me. There's my tail.
Yeah.
So I wanted to continue by saying, I believe gang stalking is perpetrated upon people who are standing up against the broken, corrupt systems on planet Earth. And again, those of us who are the system busters. Okay. And my experiences, I would say, with gang stalking began in childhood with deep levels of trauma and abuse. Okay, maybe we can all relate to that, starting as early as possible. And again, possession was involved, and it felt like a draconian energy first settled into a significant caregiver and then was passed on to me. And it feels like my labs were involved. And my labs are military experimentations and abduction for our listeners who may not know that. And so, again, it can affect all relationships, jobs, friends that a person is engaged with, vehicles that one purchases and owns, apartments that one rents, houses one may purchase to live in, everything being controlled by satanic, negative alien agenda forces. And to me personally, I was always being watched by these dark forces. Before I get into further detail, I wanted to ask if Linda, if you can provide us with a more detail on what a dark portal is, so that we can have a more of an understanding, because we're going to be talking about that in depth.
Yeah, Chastity, she did mention about, this partial possession that, that can happen with people, especially when they're emotionally triggered. So, you know, if someone's like angry or really upset, you know, it's like sort of quite destructive emotions or behaviors, then that is a way in for an entity. So a dark portal. So say, for example, you know, you're having an exchange with someone, and, you know, that's not to say, you know, you can also be triggered at the same time. You know, so it's just that we're, you know, sort of describing it, a scenario of, you know, these sort of emotions that are coming out within an argument. But, you know, as Chastity mentioned, is that, you know, the more that we do our shadow work, the more that we work on ourselves, then we are able to, you know, to stay in this sort of neutral point, and we're just able to sort of witness or observe. And so more often than not, when you start, you know, coming into that neutral space and you're becoming aware of your multidimensionality and everything like that, you know, then they will use people around you. You know, they can, you know, into loved ones or family members, you know, something like that. You know, or it can be a complete stranger. And so what they like to do, it's basically they like to attach themselves to someone who is fragmented. So, you know, we call it fragmented as in, you know, they've got unhealed trauma, or, you know, they're in their pain body. So, you know, it's that's what a dark portal is basically. Yeah, it's like they're being used to then, you know, get to you in any way that will trigger you, or upset you, or try to hurt you. And so, you know, it's very important when you feel that, you know, someone is being a dark portal around you, is just then, you know, just to walk away, to stay neutral, or, you know, try and just have some sort of loving kindness, because now you are aware of what is happening to that person. And it is banning, you know, it's about putting a boundary down as well. So, you know, we'll talk a lot more about, you know, techniques and things like that. But yeah, that's like a summary of a dark portal.
Linda, thank you for that. Would you say that, just to clarify, the dark portal are these entities, these unseen spirits, okay? Are they the ones that are walking into the light body to interfere and influence the person who has been triggered, and then the entity is speaking through, let's say, the human? Would that be accurate to say?
That is accurate. You know, they can walk in and they can attach, but you know, they are also already attached. So to be aware of that as well. You know, people are walking around on a daily basis in their light body already. They have these attachments, and you might not be aware of them. You know, if you know a person, but it's only when they become more triggered, then this entity or this attachment will then come out. You know, it will show itself basically.
And the
yeah, does that make sense? So yeah.
Yes, I just want to add that from what I have sensed, I don't necessarily see, I just sense the frequency, the signature. There are three main areas where they attach: the brain, the heart, and sexual organs. I mean, there are obviously other areas on the way. We've got gallbladder meridian where they can get in, and there are other centers that are subsidiary centers, but the main three, like, you know, you could almost feel and sense on everyone, on many people, is the head, the brain. So something, especially around the ears, like we have the portals, because we talked a little bit about our kind of body as a portal system. So there are certain portals around, and this is where they, and of course sexual organs. So I just wanted to chime that in, what Linda was saying, so that people could start recognizing and sensing. Is it in the heart? Like Chastity said, they come in through the heart, they invert, they do something that the pain then cannot be processed harmoniously through the heart, emotionally, how we're meant to. It gets stuck in the sexual organs, in the pain body. And yes, the heart, the brain, and the sexual organs. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just wanted to chime that.
Yeah. Anyone else have anything to add to what a dark portal is?
Yeah, I think that, thank you both, Linda and Trinity for explaining that and the segue into it, Sonia. Thank you. I think that dark portal, like in a really human sense, is I think everybody can understand what a narcissist is or what gaslighting is, right? And you know, some of us are in romantic relationships and being gaslighted. Some of us gaslight our children and don't even know it, or it can be happening again in our schools or whatever. And gaslighting happens in what's curious about how these entities could have been there for a long time, because possession is normal, right? We think, oh, it's a freak thing, or you watch a scary movie and you think, oh my gosh, you know, possession doesn't happen very often, and then you're going to see people crawling all over the walls. And I've seen some crazy stuff in session work, but aside from that, it's not like that, right? Possession is as simple as having a narcissist in your midst, right? Or and they start really slow too, because these entities are their goal is to stalk you. They're stalking you because they want to be able to convolute your thought process. They want you to doubt. They want you to break yourself down. And this goes right into what we were talking about when this first started. And that's, you know, that's creating that split, right? And not being able to unify. So it could go from, don't I always have the house thermometer, the thermostat set at 68, and then your partner or whoever says, no, it's always at 69, and you're like, no, I'm pretty sure it's 68. It starts with little tiny things, right? And then they'll turn it up or down and say, no, that's something that you did. And then and these are just little, you know, things, start making you doubt your own thought, your own sense of self, right? And anything like, oh, you're wearing, Trinity, you're wearing a purple sweater. No, I'm not. This is a red sweater. Oh, it is? It looks really purple to me. Nope, I've always had this red sweater on, right? It's just kind of, I'm being pretty crazy in my examples, but you know, they're just these things that seem normal that we start to question, that's how we get baited into eventually just kind of going crazy, right? And then that's how they'll continue to feed off of us.
And that's very interesting, because as you were speaking, I was thinking, yes, because this is exactly what is happening on a collective level with collective shadow. A lot of gaslighting, a lot of kind of giving information, conflicting information. People kind of like, what do I believe? People are questioning their own sanity. I mean, look at the doctors, look at the cognitive dissonance that the doctors are having, because they're like, this doesn't make any sense, but the government says the masks are helping, but no, they don't. But like, am I going crazy? Have I done my 6 years in medical school? So it's like this amount of gaslighting creates what you've said. It weakens us. It creates this kind of dissonance within us. And of course they can come in then and continue breaking, taking us away. Yes. So yeah, gaslighting is one of their tactics. It's narcissistic, kind of abusive strategy.
And when it's happening on such a huge level, like on our governments, you know, the people that we trust, the groups that we trust, right? And then you get to just understand it and accept it. And like you said, it's the cognitive dissonance, right? All it takes is just for a couple of people to go, wait, hold on. There's more to this, and there are truths that we're not seeing, and that's actually what we're currently seeing. This is you know, it's the rise of the people. I think it's called the rise of the Christ, right? And we're squashing that Antichrist, and boy, they are really upset. And now one of the things is, you know, they're saying, and this is something that happens in relationships too, well, you hurt my feelings, or I'm this way because you did this, that, or the other thing. And our larger structures, our larger governmental structures or pharmaceutical all these are saying, you know, well, in terms of the masks, you know, so and so, your grandma, this is what your grandma is sick because you chose not to wear a mask, right? It's the same as saying you hurt my feelings because you did this. It's that same type of gaslighting, that start for that gaslighting.
Yes, and emotional manipulation, yes, via guilt, via like, I want to be a good citizen, I want to do right thing for my grandma, but actually I'm actually killing myself and grandma in the process by following. And also false king of tyranny, you know, this is again collective kind of purging of the government as a father figure, as a protective father, but actually a false father who is, instead of loving their, you know, who gave their trust in them and protecting them, they're actually killing them and giving them false information, lying and providing a lot of gaslighting tactics for their own agenda. And this is the kind of massive awakening for people. A lot of people just do not want to face this, that this good father suddenly turning into a very tyrannical, false, domineering, abusive king who just wants what they want and they'll take it by any means.
Yeah, like a little toddler throwing a fit. That's my toy, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Very intense. It's very intense. And on the larger sense of gang stalking, you know, well, you get into different types of sprays, you get into different types of technology interferences. I have a really fascinating story. When I had first started learning about, I used to try to protect my energy body different ways. So once I found the 12D shield and I learned that it evolves as we evolve, as our light body, as we bring more of our higher self into our body, we see we begin to see more of our authentic signature come online, and our shields actually morph and change to that. So we're I love the 12D shield because it gives that foundational piece for us to be protected, to bring that in. I was laying in bed one night and I heard this wong, 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 like this really crazy sound. And I thought, what in the world is that? And then I felt it come through my entire house, my entire house. It didn't come through me because I was shielded. So I literally felt my own little protection, but it went through my whole house. I sensed it go through all of my family. And I thought, holy crap, what was that? And then I could hear it go farther away. And then I heard it reset and it came back again. And I thought, well, so I shielded everybody. I shielded the house. I thought, oh my gosh. And what it did then is it went up and over my house. And then it went a little slower. It came by another time and stopped over the top of my house. Mm. The sound stopped over the top of my house. And I thought, what in the frick is going on? And I, needless to say, was a little unnerved, right? So I couldn't go back to sleep. And I thought, well, I'm going to go downstairs and I think I'm just going to meditate. And I'm just going to be up for the day, for the rest of the night. I don't know what time this was, but so I went downstairs and I thought to look outside. I thought, oh, you know, I wonder if I left my tripod outside. And that's what I heard in my head. Go look and see if your tripod is outside. And I looked and I thought, oh, okay, good. It's still there. And normally I would never walk this way in my house to check anything. And it's like I was guided to, right? And then I walked, I had this little window next to my front door, right? So like you could see out onto the porch next to the door. And I turned and looked out the little window. I am not joking you. There was a little gray alien standing right there. Yeah. And I looked and then I looked again and then it cloaked itself And I was like, I can still see you. I was like, what? And, you know, but we live, I live by University of Washington Medical School. And so, you know, I'm like, what in the world is going on? What kind of, to me, this is a whole nother level of gang stalking, right? Like Sonia had said, you know, she can, you know, she gets the interference, or, you know, I've had, I was doing sessions at home since this whole lockdown stuff. And I had this one family that would call, and every time this family was in session, black helicopters would fly over my house. I am not joking you. And I always thought this was like, this is not true. This is not, you know, that there's no way that's a real thing. That's got to be somebody else's reality. And then next thing you know, it was my reality. And so sometimes I think, well, why am I seeing this? What is this? You know, and instead of being scared, you know, looking at it and going, what is this all about? What are you looking to, you know, get? How is it serving me or the other person, or not, right? I don't know. Just some interesting stuff that's happened over here on my side in terms of a different level of gang stalking outside of gaslighting, right?
Yeah, you make some good. Sorry, go ahead, Trinity.
Sonia, you go. I will after. I'll just a short little.
Yeah, no, I was just thanking you for those examples. Those are good examples, and different levels of the gang stalking. I was just reiterating that, and actually they tie into and fit into some of the examples that I'm going to list here. And I wanted to see if we could expand even more and share even more on the gang stalk of what we all experienced. Trinity, did you want to say anything else though?
I think I'll probably maybe say, it's just Chastity said something which I thought was very important for our listeners to note. Okay, maybe I say it now. Chastity said, I see you. I mean, this is the key word, because these entities who cloak themselves, these entities who try to possess us and come as dark portal, their key card is that we do not acknowledge them. They love to stay in the shadows of unknown kind of, you know, as soon as one says, I see you, they hate it, they don't like it, and they collapse. It's like they cannot, like Chastity, you said, I see you, and they had like, I had no choice. That's it. You've acknowledged they're there. You already set your space. It's a Christic environment, and they had to bugger off, excuse my language, but you know, it's like not acknowledging them gives them power.
Yeah.
That's all I wanted to say. So even if you just say like mentally, I see you, I feel you, get out of my space. Even if we cannot quite yet recognize whether they're fallen angelics, whether they're like, you know, Anunnaki hybrids or draconians, or, you know, we've got like a whole variety of who it might be. But just like, I see you, get out of my space. I can sense you. Don't stay here. So that's all I wanted to.
I agree.
Yeah, thank you, Chastity, because, you know, you're mentioning very important keywords, which, you know, are very good for our listeners to kind of contemplate and apply to themselves in this, because we're all in this. This is a war of a consciousness. We have to win it. We won it. But
Yeah.
it just, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, thank you for that, Trinity and Chastity. And so we can see now how gang stalking ties into Megiddo Archetypal Battle. You know, it's breaking it down. Okay, what are we facing in the fields? And so if we remember that the entities like to start as young as possible to infiltrate the consciousness of the person, of the human, children are vulnerable, and they're very, I would say, susceptible to their environment, relying on adults to keep them safe, et cetera, et cetera. If those certain components are not there, right, and we have the opposite of certain abuses, et cetera, this starts to mold our consciousness, and again, starting as early as possible. And so I would see this happening for myself as a very young child, you know, dealing with abuse and possession, but also having it carried on into grade school and high school. And this is why we discussed what the dark portal is, to help give us an understanding, because the entities will jump in to the the triggered human. Let's say your associate or your friend at school, etc., can jump into these people, and or the entity could already be in the field and it could be activated. And so we see this happening with children being bullied, intimidated, and this is to further fragment a person's consciousness and self-esteem. And this happens, you know, in grade school and high school. When we talk about shifting gears a bit, we're talking about gang stalking with finances, harassment with finances. The entities like to, I would say, hold that, above us, hold that, or use the financial system, use survival consciousness against us, and so that we're always locked in that. And, you know, money is the big thing, the black magic money system. And so I saw that happening a lot within my own experiences. And part of the possession that I dealt with and the molding as a child and into adulthood was to be frivolous with my finances, having no knowledge or self-control about any of it. Oh, a credit card? Oh, how fun. Yeah, let me have a few of those, right? And then just being out of control with that and not understanding self-control, not understanding how to manage and balance resources, but also my life. And really, this is the energy signature of the predator mind. This is the predator mind that was downloaded into my consciousness. And all of this is purposeful. This is part of the gang stalking tactic. And it is, for me, you know, it was a form of control, because once I had my frivolous fun with, you know, the credit cards and racking up so many bills that I couldn't pay them, okay, then you're stuck, right? Because then you have less freedom, and the entities can sort of mold where you're going to live. They can mold lots of different things in your life based upon your level of financial stability or the resources that you have at your disposal. So that's just a little tidbit that we can kind of mull around, and there might be some information that we'd like to each share on that. But for now, let me just move down the list. I like to say that there was a general harassment that I experienced with dark portal humans walking to work. There would be a constant people driving by in these very loud diesel pickup trucks with roaring engines driving at me and then swerving at the last, you know, right when they got close to me. Okay, this is intimidation. This is an intimidation tactic. So we've got it coming from all angles. Okay, this is more of the gang stalking. I've had harassment with police officers. There was a constant watching of my whereabouts. I remember crossing a non-busy secondary street. Okay, we all do this. There was a crosswalk, but there was nobody around. It was a quiet street. I crossed the street, but they really like to hammer the finances home, like to really try to drive that home with ruining me in that area. And suddenly a police officer pulls up out of nowhere and issues me a very large sum ticket for crossing this this side street. Okay, and I was dumbfounded. I'm like, what do you say to that? And if you're not fully, you know, I would say in your shield, if you're not aware at this time, I felt like so intimidated. And oh my gosh, this police officer is hovering over me, handing me this very expensive ticket for crossing this secondary street when no one was around. Okay, it makes you go, okay, and you start to put the pieces together. Am I being harassed? Okay, and then I remember one time walking my cat when it was dark out on a quiet beach, and because he didn't like the crowd, so I wanted him to have some fresh air, and we were outside walking. Suddenly a police officer pulls up and tells me that I'm breaking the law and issues me a ticket. Okay, more harassment. I've been walking to work, also having a police officer pull up behind me to question where I was going, what I was doing. Okay, so those are some examples of police harassment. Not all police officers are bad. Not trying to say that. I'm trying to say that these are some examples that that we might face. There is harassment in the workplace. I have experienced a constant betrayal and lack of recognition, sabotage, bullying, anger, disrespect from possessed, dark portaled coworkers. Again, I would experience people who have no understanding or limited understanding about Ascension, no or limited understanding about how stuck trauma is affecting the consciousness. And they're triggered, and then the entities can walk in, or they've already had the entities in their field, as Linda pointed out, and these entities then speak through the humans to attack, constant attack in that way upon my being. And this is, to me, is to try and keep us quiet, shattered, so that we can't heal and step into our personal power. So there's a constant bombardment. Harassment from neighbors. Maybe some of us can relate to neighbors playing loud music, loud voices, cigarettes being smoked to pollute my personal surroundings, not in their own area, but like would walk, like I'd be meditating outside and people would walk by, blow cigarette smoke at me. Spying, lack of privacy. Okay, and we can move on to also computer technology, internet harassment. We had a little bit of that earlier before we came on today. We heard Chastity pointed out that she heard a bit of rattling, possibly from a shamanic entity presence that seemed neutral. But sometimes it's not neutral. Sometimes it's harassing and negative. I was struck by a rainstorm once, and rain came through a leak in the ceiling and fried my computer. And that's gang stalking. I lost all of my files, my passwords, Ascension related information, lost it all, and I had to purchase a new computer. I have also had my internet crash, unable to access, quite difficult if you're trying to get things done to complete a project, or you're trying to meet, with a group such as this. In editing our videos for the Truth Pulse, I've had video editing software become compromised, lost files, software crashing, malfunctioning. Okay, so that's another example. Alien stink bite within relationships. It's also been called alien love bite. I don't like to call it love bite. There's no such word in that definition, in my opinion. I call it alien stink bite. And with all intimate relationships, I was paired with possessed people who would match my own broken, dysfunctional state of mind. Okay, so, and even if I was starting to heal and I would elevate myself toward a relationship that was healthier, entities would arrange to have that person move away or suddenly lose interest and leave. So this is more gang stalking. This is a control over the person's consciousness and life in all aspects. There's a couple more here that I'll mention. And then after this, I'd like to open it up to the group. But again, I think it's important to mention these briefly because it helps the listener to understand what is the Megiddo archetypal battle like on planet Earth? What is this harassment that I'm feeling, this constant gnawing and sadness and disappointment and all this chaos around me? Well, now if I start to break it down, yeah, I'm seeing this too. So a few more, we might have experiences with gang stalking with physical health. I have experienced heavy fatigue, which felt like deep sickness and death codes that I was clearing on a constant basis. This makes it very difficult to try to get anything done. And I often would feel this before I would come on to the Truth Pulse, or if I was trying to prepare information for the Truth Pulse, like to prepare for a podcast, prepare the outline to research for that. constantly would experience fatigue in that way and sickness. Coronavirus symptoms, they nailed me with that. 5G harassment, ringing in ears and head, blacking out, waking up to find a painful bruise on my spine, suppressor parasite entities to cause intense pain in the kidneys, to also they were used, this parasite entity is used to mind control me in the sleep state, and it's I would say an in or an access point for the entities to harass and enter my light body in the sleep state. And finally, I wanted to mention, again, I said the sleep state, so the relentless dream state harassment. So that's another way that the entities can get to us, not only in our physical lives through dark portal people or what feels like black magic curses, hexes, and spells on every aspect of our lives. We've got the relentless dream state harassment by these entities. And for me, there was no control, for me. Like, I didn't have control over myself to be able to prevent the mind control that was happening, that was perpetuated upon me. So basically, there's a constant sabotage in that way against my free will. And to me, what it was all about is these entities, to me, are assigned to people. They of course are there to do many things to us, and we can open that up for discussion. But also, I wanted to mention that they are there not only to collect loot and harm us and harass us, but they want to stop us from light working. They want to stop us from reclamation, from reclaiming fragmented parts, fragmented body parts. We're trying to reclaim and bring everything back into oneness and wholeness. So we've got our different multidimensional stations of identity, and they're trying to stop that process. So they've got me held down, held captive in this one dreamscape area that they've created, and I'm held there, and they're playing house with me. They're whatever they're doing with me. Sometimes it's sexual, sometimes it's non-sexual, and then we go on these journeys, and I'm held captive. So there has been my experience quickly in a nutshell. I'd like to open it up to the group. If any of you, if that triggered any memories in you, and you may have different experiences than from what I expressed here, and please do share. But maybe we could ask our guest speaker, Chastity, first. Do you have anything that you'd like to share about that?
Oh dear, ladies, oh dear. Lots of stuff, right? I can certainly relate to the poverty consciousness. You get into the gang stalking that starts really, again, as young as possible, starting with sexual abuse, starting with bindings, starting with these tigers and trackers that are put into our light body that are before we actually come here into physical manifestation, right? So then it follows us about, and then we have no awareness of that. So in one sense, I will share with you in terms of stopping us from doing our light work. I have a really interesting fascination. 2016, right around in there, there was a really interesting time. I was working on someone, specifically, I was working on their left leg and foot. I remember this explicitly. I was in my own space. I had, protected the space and cleared it, and all the things. It was my own studio, right? And all of a sudden, I felt these beings come into my space. And this was before I understood how to do a 12D shield. Okay, so I always had struggled with, using a white bubble. I could make it as thick and big as I wanted to, right? But it was still penetrable, right? No matter what you did, it was still penetrable. Even when you use gold light, you use whatever. Well, all of a sudden I felt come in from my right side these beings, and I had seen them in my mind's eye. So it was like they were actually there. And there were two gentlemen, and they identified themselves as men in black, and in between them was a little gray. I don't know why I get to see all the little grays all the time. And the only thing that they had said to me was, "We found you, witch." And I thought, what?
Goodness gracious.
I'm not a witch. I was like, not in this lifetime, right?
Wow.
But right after that, they had left. I noticed that they'd ripped open a portal in my studio. And then right after that, on my other side, sat down in a chair, was a outline shadow of what I guess looked like a man. And I said, well, who are you? Like, why am I getting all these visitors? And he said, I'm a watcher. And I said, well, what in the hell are you watching? Pardon me.
Right. And in my apartment, excuse me,
You're in
hello.
my, right? And so what I have found is, you know, this kind of makes me think about, I just had a conversation with a good friend of mine about ascending hubs and descending hubs. And you talk about how, you know, with this, you know, financial situation, and you know, we don't really learn an awareness of that and what it does, and how it keeps us enslaved, right? And how it can potentially bring us to live in a space that has more descending hubs, right?
Right.
And then what we don't know is that we, and this is something to teach people, that we can become our own descending hub or ascending hub, right? And so when we, with absolute, and this is with complete fearlessness, and this is with absolute authority, that we command our space, we set our full intent, consent, and authority in integrity, in the Christ light, and they tend to, what we tend to give attention to tends to manifest more. That's just from my personal experience. So when I'm not saying it, poverty, I'm not saying your bills get paid because you ignore them, right? But when you can hold that zero aspect, or that zero point, and look at that with different eyes, right? As in, this had served me, I didn't know better, and now reiterating your new authority, your new intentions, and then things start taking care of themselves in different ways. So it's almost like we can't banish out everything at once, right? And so one of the things, Sonia, that you said, and I didn't write it down, I noticed Trinity is taking notes, so perhaps she might have taken a note on this. I'm not certain, but it was about, it just left my mind. I'll come back to it if I think about it again. Yeah, it just completely left my mind.
Was it about, could I ask you, Chastity, was it about the finances that you were talking about, or were you segueing into something else? Because I had a question, or I wanted to make a comment on what you had said about the finances. Were you going to segue into something else?
I'm not certain. It literally left my mind, which was interesting. I know I was going to also touch a little bit on the Dreamtime stuff and the worlds that are created, because they're worlds within worlds. bringing things up about being stalked by other people that are being used as entities. And sometimes what I have found is that, or being attacked, like kidneys being attacked, or things like that. Sometimes what I've seen in the field is that it's actually a wounded aspect of self that has been tricked to believe that the ascension is not a good thing, right? And so by not clearing that pain body, and they bring in different aspects of self that they have more control over, whether it be a clone or a stolen piece of the soul body, a stolen piece of your crystal heart, whatever that will resonate. So you recognize it, and then you stay in that the frequency of the mental field, because when they can keep us in our mental field, it's easier to manipulate the emotional aspects and continue to attack the physical body in ways that we would oversee or overlook or not notice, because we get stuck in that mental world. Am I making sense?
It reminds me of altars.
Yeah.
And I think it's good that, you know, we also maybe reiterate to the listeners about our multidimensional aspects, because these things that are affecting us, you know, you made some good points, Chastity, and, you know, they could be altars, they could be negative forms, they could be clones, you know, that are affecting our consciousness. But it's not necessarily something that happened in this lifetime. It could be pulled from other stations of identity, other timelines, a stuck fragment. The entities like to have field days with that kind of thing. And so, yeah, I think that it definitely is. I agree with you. As I have explored and learned and listened to different wisdom from other people as well, I do think that when it's a way in, all right, you've got trauma that's unhealed, and that allows, you know, maybe that is the reason why my kidneys are so harshly attacked, and I don't have all the pieces, but they have really honed in on that right side. And someone had once said it was due to a gang rape in another station of identity. And so just putting together with what you had said, you know, reiterating that, you know, possibly it's related to fragments, and it's a way into the light body, the pain body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, interesting, right? It's so interesting to see what happens in the dream world, which is a real world, right? It's a dream to us in our human mind when we wake up, but it's really happening. These other dimensional aspects and these other timelines, they're real, right?
Yeah.
And people think, oh, I just had this weird dream or this, you know, and then it gets dismissed, when in actuality, if we can identify that dream as reality and process it in the now time, we can collapse that and heal these aspects that we don't see on a regular basis.
That's a good point. If you wanted to elaborate on that, or maybe Trinity or Linda, did you have something to add on, you know, taking a look at these alternate stations of identity and how we go about looking at that, witnessing that, and collapsing it? Does anyone have anything to share for our listeners on how we do that?
Well, I could just say that dream, it's very true what Chastity said, that it's another reality that our mind does not perceive as real because we're in 3D. But as soon as we lose the body, you know, that's the reality that a lot of us are going to be part to. So, well, not necessarily the astral, but so yes, I think it's also to do with deciphering the language of light, because it's like dreamscape needs a different instrument to decipher the language, like Chastity said, to process it in your day-to-day, to process it in a here and now moment. It's also because we're all unique and we all have this kind of different language, how that speaks to us. So I suppose it's also using symbology which are resonating and looking at the galactic history as well, because dream space might be linked somehow to the memories of the galactic history and bringing some other stations of identity to come in through the dream space. So I'm just saying to the listeners, you know, we probably could put some links about the galactic history and maybe some, so that it requires a bit of imagination, because our spirit is imaginative, it's creative. And that's what the dream space is. Everything is upside down. It's kind of like everything comes in symbols, everything comes. So I just wanted to add that, yes, and it just needs a bit of imagination and effort to sort of understand that language, and we can process it.
Thank you.
Linda, did you have anything you wanted to add? Not at this time? Chastity, when you were talking about the finances, and I liked how you rounded that up when you were saying, you know, that was then and here is now, you know, we can now choose. We now have tools. We have these options that we can come out of this possession or this conditioning, you know, that we were stuck in poverty consciousness, but we can learn to diffuse that and let it go. So I liked how you explained that for us. I had something, I don't know if this is unique for me, but I'd like to hear all, you know, what you all say on this, but regarding the finances. So yeah, just chaos and ruin with my finances. Oh my gosh, unbelievable. And so when I finally was able to be in more of control of myself and my consciousness, to say, hey, wait just a minute here. I don't like that about myself. I don't like how, I don't like there to be an imbalance in that way. And I believe in honesty, and I believe in integrity, and I don't, you know, hoarding the resources. I don't align with that at all. And then I started to realize that this is the predator mind that was downloaded. And okay, now I have to restructure everything. This kind of goes into what you were saying, Chastity. And for me, the process was resetting everything, just really getting down to basics and bringing some self-control, impulse control and self-control about within every aspect of my life, you know, having balance in that way. So I think for me personally, it is a consciousness shift. You know, it's about, you know, saying I'm not going to subscribe to this, you know, these negative thought forms, etc. But to me, it also was about actually physically hunkering down, getting down to business, and resetting everything and making different choices. So if there was, you know, it might just be helpful as a bit of a guideline for people who have been, who've experienced that. And part of Ascension is, as painful as it is, it's taking responsibility. And I'm like, what do you mean taking responsibility? I didn't do this to myself. And I went through all of that, and you know, and this anger, and but this was downloaded to me, and it's not my fault. And you know, you go through, or at least I went through that. But then at the end of the day, you're still stuck there. So what are you going to do about it is what I was faced with. And okay, so let me see what I can do. And then my higher self started coming in, and I chose integrity over all of this selfishness, this service to self. Okay, this is how you can do it. This is how it's done. We can just say, what are some more positive choices? And that's what I did. Okay, paying bills on time, recycling, not wasting. If I have leftovers, food, I put it in the fridge. I don't throw it in the trash. It's a revamping of everything that was service to self, revamping it to be a responsible citizen, a responsible galactic citizen that I want to work towards, and to live in harmony with everything and everyone around me. So I just wanted to add that about the restructuring process.
Mm-hmm. Well said. Yes.
Thank you, Trinity.
Yeah, it's a very important point. You know, this is basically, you know, the buck starts with us. You know, we've got to take self-responsibility. We have to take, you know, responsibility with our emotional wounding, with everything, you know, our whole shadow clearing, because, you know, it's about service to others, because the more we look after ourselves, the more it has a knock-on effect, you know, looking after everyone else around us, you know, energetically. You know, if more people were able just to take self-responsibility, stop, you know, playing this blame game that you know, the ego likes to play, that would just be fantastic, wouldn't it? You know, it would just be, you know, the self-sovereignty of owning all the aspects that you have, you know, and turning that darkness into light. This is what it's about. This is the times now to do that, isn't it, for everybody? You know, it's just on the inner, the outer. It's all about growing, and however uncomfortable it is, because it really is. I mean,
Yeah.
very uncomfortable. Some days you're just like, wow, I can't take it anymore, and then it's like,
Yeah.
you know, you feel the Christ heart. You know, it's like, actually, of course you can. You know, you go into your heart, you feel the love that's there. You know that's not the truth of who you are. As soon as you remember the truth of who you are, okay, then
Yeah.
I'm ready for the next round.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is the battle that we're in. You know, yeah, it's intense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I completely relate to the bill paying or not bill paying and poverty consciousness. It has been something that has literally been ingrained into me. You're never going to make enough. You're never going to this. You can't pay that. Where are you going to live? I've actually lost a home, broken my family up. I mean, you name it, they've done it, right? And so, and then that's one of the wounds they keep trying to go for me, specifically, right? Because it is what I came into. You know, I didn't come in to this life with money, right? We didn't come in with that. And I can actually, I actually have not a very good relationship with money. I can feel black magic, like it makes me sick, right? Like makes me nauseous. And so I had to understand how to coexist with this particular 3D construct, which is very, I still find challenging. So realizing that if I can't pay something, like Sonia said, to stand in integrity, and you know, whether it be paying on time or even making that arrangement, you know, swallowing your embarrassment, understanding you may get some harassment, you know, however that, but face it, look at it right in the face and say, here's what I can do. Here's how I can, you know, take responsibility for my unknowingness. And here's what I know now. And we're going to move forward and work through this.
Yeah.
And, you know, even fears of, oh my gosh, what if I can't pay the rent? Or what if this happens? And then, you know, I start to look at the bigger picture and say, you know what? I'm going to trust that because I stand in my light and I stand in my integrity, that it's all going to be okay.
Yeah. That's
Right?
beautiful.
Yeah, very, very, very beautiful. I had that sense as well, very, very recently, the sense that that's it. There is no future as such to construct in the head. It's like standing each day in the now with the creative power from the heart and just being in that. Just getting one day at a time in the now moment and creating as we go along. These constructs of the mind who constantly worries about the future or all these fears, you know, from the past, that's it, it's going. We cannot function like this anymore. It's going to self-destruct us, almost like lower the frequency, take us down. That's it. We are moving into the 5D, which is, you know, creating with the hearts and in the now moment, being that expression. So that's very strongly coming now, that if we are to negotiate this shadow Megiddo battle, we need to stand in this, like what Chastity began that with the 0 point, standing in that space. So that's my little chime on that.
Well said,
Striving.
Trinity.
Sort of, we all need to strive. We all need to get there. We all need to work on that if it's difficult for us, and clear as much shadow as possible. Not be afraid. Not bury our head in the sand.
Yeah.
This is another thing. Yes, like burying the head. Like, it's not happening. I don't want to look at it. No, we have to. We need to. Like, the whole planet is at stake. Humanity is at stake. All of us need to. Whomever is awake needs to do that.
Yes. Yes.
It kind of ties in, if I could chime in for a moment so I don't lose this, because I wanted to go off on what you just said, Trinity. A couple of things. And so remind me about learned helplessness, because I want to say that something on that. But I want to also say, when we're talking about saying the predator mind download and such, at least for me, and you all can say how you feel, but I'm not coming from a point of judgment. I'm not trying to necessarily say, it's the entities, it's all their fault. But in a sense, that is what I'm saying. That was contradictory. But what I'm trying to say also is that, you've got the Christ blueprint, the Diamond Sun blueprint, that doesn't involve the service to self. It involves service to others, okay? And then we have the predator mind that was downloaded to us, okay? And so this is what we're working on to clear. And so, although we may say, this is the predator mind and we have to clear, it's not so much about blaming and judgment. Take it how it resonates for you. But it is about getting back to our Diamond Sun blueprint, which is service to others. And so I just wanted, for myself, I wanted to make that part clear. And I think, like we've been discussing here, all of us kind of chimed in with this. And like you just said, Trinity, too, it's like taking responsibility. This is what I wanted to mention about the learned helplessness. And goodness gracious, that, I understand that so well, and it took me a long time to reclaim my power, and I'm still in the process of that. But yeah, this is what we're talking about. I think we were talking about the masks a little bit, and just trusting the governments, and just saying, that the governments are harming us, or at least the shadow governments. Let's make that clear: shadow government, shadow military. Okay, and we've got these things happening, and people are just blindly saying, okay, let me put a mask on, and nobody's questioning, and people are just rolling up their sleeves to get vaccines, and etc. And so it's about taking responsibility again, as difficult and painful as that is, because we have been brainwashed to not step into our power and take responsibility for ourselves. And the ultimate goal is to live in harmony with one another, service to others, and to be galactic citizens with our star race family. We can't do that, if we have to start here. We have to start here and now with everything, even with the trauma that was projected upon us.
Well said. Yep. We've got to. Otherwise, we'll end up in unfortunately, that's the choice we have. End up as a AI cyborg, post-human type of AI modified, type of human who will be like, Wolverine or whatever these movies are showing us. No heart, semi-robotic being, which totally lost its own consciousness. And this is important to reiterate that. Once we do that, once we start merging bit by bit with AI, we are losing our organic blueprint. Correct me if I'm wrong, but this is how I understand it. Our organic blueprint, this Christic organic blueprint that we have, we're going to lose it. We're going to trade it for maybe 100 years more life, or whatever it is that AI can offer us in return, this kind of immortality, which is looping in an AI system somewhere. Our original organic double diamond sun.
It almost to piggyback on that, Trinity, as you're talking, it looks to me like when you say we lose the organic blueprint, it's like that system overrides the the Christed self, right? It literally overrides and disintegrates or eats away that. Yeah. So
Yeah.
we don't have access to it anymore.
Right.
It literally is completely gone, and we get put into a whole nother type of system, entropic system, not like the entropic system we're in now, because there are loopholes to get out of it currently. But with AI, I don't see that if we're especially choosing that consciously or not or not conscious, it puts us into a different system that we have then we can't get our blueprint back.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's very sad. That's a very sad. I mean, as a parent, I would not want this for my child.
Yeah.
So our progenitors, the Lyrans, you know, yes, I mean, it's a very sad ending for the human, for those humans who may choose to go that way. So on a positive note, we have a choice now, and help and assistance is here. So this is our call, what we're going to do.
Yeah, well said, everybody. Well said. Awesome sharings here. I'm wondering if there's anything else anybody wanted to share about any other stories with gang stalking. You know, we've got gang stalking with what I term the alien stink bite, so you can term it how you like, but with relationships, physical health, anything anybody wants to share on, you know, nature being used, you know, dogs and cats and insect kingdom being used against us. Just some ideas to kind of trigger some memories. Sleep state harassment. Does anybody have anything that they wanted to share about with any other topics?
I've got the alien stink bite, as you call it, Sonia.
Yeah, I know.
Oh yeah.
Crazy.
And you know, I just want to say to the listeners, it's like, I think you have to be made aware of, you know, everyone's getting our memories back now. We're remembering of what's happened to us. But I think, you know, it's hard for your mind, your 3D mind, to get your head around the fact is, how do they know? You know, how do they know where you are? You know, how do they read? You know, or how do they do it? You know, it's all these questions that your mind is, you know, that I still, you know, your mind just boggles at the thought of it. But you've just got to remember that they've been around for a very, very, very long time. You know, whereas we've been switched off. You know, we've had amnesia. So we can't remember, you know, the power, the true power that we really have, you know, the beings that we truly are. And so, you know, they can see all these different dimensions and all these frequencies. And you know, okay, for some of us, you know, we are, you know, able to, but you know, as we've discussed, we have to claim back these pieces. We've got to claim back our fragments and everything like that. But you know, I recognized all this information. It wasn't like, oh yeah, what am I trying to say? I've experienced it. You know, this is what I'm trying to say. I've experienced all this, you know, throughout my life. You know, as Chastity shared, you know, it's like feeling of being watched as a child. And, you know, you'd put a thought out or you'd want something, and it might not necessarily be for your best interest, but it would come to you. And it's like, you know, you're scratching your head going, wow, how did that happen? Or, you know, you go into your heart space. So for example, we talked about you're in your mental body, you're sort of taken over by worry and fear. And so you're creating that vibration. Then, you know, with this worry and fear, then that's just going to come to you. So, you know, whatever you're fearing, you know, like, oh, I haven't paid this bill, and you know, rather than going into your heart and saying, okay, I have everything I need. It doesn't matter if I can't pay this bill right now, you know, the money will come. And so, you know, I've experienced these different polarities, you know, within myself. You know, so you have to sooner or later, you've got to show up. You know, what are you going to choose? Are you going to choose, like, you know, your heart space, or are you going to just keep being taken over by, you know, these thoughts and feelings, you know, these fragments. You know, you have to choose in that moment. So yeah, I mean, I know that was sort of long-winded, but what I'm trying to say is that, for example, like I had these thoughts of being attracted to this celebrity. Okay, I was about age 20, and I was reading a yoga mind book. It was something to do with like the power of your thoughts or the power of your mind. It was some sort of yoga book, and I was like, oh, I'll try that technique. It was like basically you're sort of like materializing what you want. And so I did this meditation, and I sort of asked for and focused on, and like, you know, did this whole thing of like, I want this guy, okay, and you know, let it go, thought nothing of it. And this was like when I was about 18. And then 2 years later, you know, I'm in this public place, and this guy is there, right, that I've put these thoughts out and this desire, this projection, okay, and you know, we are attracted to each other, and I'd totally forgotten about it, about what I did at the age of 18. So there I am, age 20, okay, and we get together, and you know, that'll be another whole story for another time. But basically, this was an alien stink bite situation. We got together, and it was absolute, just, it was one of those complete, you know, addictive, like sort of descending relationships. It was very dysfunctional. And I think, you know, it was after I moved in with him, I remembered, I was like, oh my gosh, this is the guy that I saw on the telly that I wanted to be with. And here I am with this guy. I was like, no way. So, you know, just saying, you know, this is just complete, this is what they do, you know, they are watching your trajectory, they're watching your life, and they're always around you. Do you see what I mean? So they will try, you know, to get you off, to take you off course. And this is exactly what happened with this guy. It was really just sucked me down, you know, for a couple of years. And then, you know, I just went within my heart again, you know, as you do, and it's like, okay, gosh, I've got to get out of here, and realizing what was happening, you know. And I think I was like, oh, I just turned 21 or something like that, and I managed to, you know, disentangle and get away. So yeah, that's one of my yeah, stories.
Thank you for sharing that. Lots of those alien stink bites out there. That's I think one of the best ways that they have to you know, I don't want to sound sexist when I say this, but I feel like by keeping women in these relationships specifically, it took longer for Mother to come here. And I don't know why I feel that way, you know, take it as you will. But that's what I feel like, you know, just by continually bombarding starseed women, well, and men, but you just don't seem to, they don't seem to experience it the same way. And again, I don't want to sound sexist at all, but you know, it's like they have all of these relationships set up for us, Linda, right? And it's almost they're one after another, and it's like, and then you go into this, can I catch a break, right? And then that keeps you spiraled into negative ego and spiraling into your shadow. It's when you were bringing that up, you know, what came to me is the difference between Satan and Lucifer. And Satan I can see in a heartbeat because of the rigidity and the coldness. Lucifer takes a little bit longer. He's a little bit more compassionate. He has some cunningness. He has the capability to mix the truth with the lie. He has a warm body, right? Where Satan does not have that, those traits, right? And so I feel like, you know, that's kind of like the first one that we can easily be attracted to because of the cunningness, right? And then in comes all the rest of the stuff.
Yes, yes, I can totally relate to that, because Lucifer is also, they respect knowledge.
Yeah.
So if you are a seeker, if your archetype is a seeker and you love knowledge, then game over,
Oh,
because
exactly.
you'll always be, Lucifer will always come and throw, okay, try this, oh wow, yeah, okay, and this, and it all looks good, but and then by the time you know it, you're in a trap.
Yep.
Here we go. So, and
You're in
Lucifer's
another
like,
trap. That's so
yeah, and
perfect.
it's like you,
Yeah.
all these different traps, and you're like, really, it's not, but it sounded so nice, he sounded so good, I mean, it's just,
With a little sparkle in his eye.
yeah, exactly. And
Yes.
then you kind of
Yep.
could relate to that. Yep.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
So if we round, sorry, go ahead, Chastity.
No, I was just going to say, I think we could just keep going on and on and on. So,
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
So if we had some really good shares today, and if we were to wrap up, if we were to say, in a nutshell, what we were talking about today, Megiddo Archetypal Battle and Gang Stalking, and how the two are paired, and what it looks like, and how it's deliberately, I would say, enacted as early as possible in childhood, and it carries us through into adulthood, and we're caught in these consciousness traps, and it would be for the reason of keeping us from embodying our true Christed identity, and whatever that involves, and it, the various layers of that we've talked about, and into freedom, because the entities don't want us to awaken. Okay, they want us to continue to be pulled in by the sparkle in the eye, right? These little tidbits, these little dangling of the carrot in front of us, to always keep searching for something outside of our what really matters to the core heart center of who we are. And should we wrap up? Linda, did you want to segue us into anything that we can do, tips to help us along the way with trying to prevent this from happening, or what can we do when we realize it has happened? Anything that you wanted to start us off with that?
Yeah, I just also wanted to clarify that, this Megiddo archetype battle, it can come through a person, but it can also come through a circumstance or a situation. It's it's difficult to describe. It can just, you just have to be on your guard, I think, really. At the end of the day, you've got to remember that, these forces are around, and that, it could be a dark portal, but it can also just take you unawares. And it's happening for a lot of people. I mean, especially if we're going through a dark night of the soul. So, that's, very archetypal in itself. So just to sort of clarify that, really. And so the self-help tools that we use, we can have, as Chastity was talking about earlier, the 12D shield, or, we can call it the Divine Light Shield. It's very powerful. It helps us to connect to our Christ selves, to our hearts. It just really keeps building our light body. It helps us to dismantle the ego. And it helps us to remember who we are. It sort of starts bringing back, memories, timelines, and it just keeps growing with us. So yeah, I think maybe we could touch upon, how to do the 12D shield probably in another podcast. But I think most importantly is really just to focus on our emotional wounding, and we really need to get into healing ourselves as much as possible, so then we can just keep within our hearts and not get triggered, and develop this sort of compassionate witness, this observer within ourselves that's going to help us navigate the challenging terrain that we're all facing at the moment, on the outerscape, as well as on the innerscape. It's keeping that fearlessness, really, at the end of the day, that we know who we really are, and we know what's happening, and we know the truth, and hopefully that will give us strength to carry us forward, just day by day, really. But yeah, just to be really loving to ourselves, you know, really being kind and gentle with ourselves, and you know, always nourishing ourselves and what we can do to look after ourselves, because you know, then we're more able to, you know, be able to stay strong and centered, and then from that space, you know, miracles happen. They truly do.
Yeah. Beautifully said. Thank you so much. Trinity, something you had said earlier that struck me that I think would be a good tip for the listeners. It's like, yeah, I fully am on board with that. You had said, you know, calling out the intruders, reclaiming our power. And you may want to expand on that. To me, that would be my tip to share. Linda said it beautifully with, you know, bringing in the spirits of Christ, the purity, generosity, patience, kindness, discipline, conservation, diligence, humility, bringing all that into balance. But as well, you know, this learned helplessness that goes out the door now. And we need to just reclaim our power, and we need to start investigating who we truly are. And it does include when entities come into our space, like Chastity, what you were explaining, when they say, yeah, we've claimed you and your mother can't hear you, or we found you and we're going to watch you. Oh, are you going to watch me? Out, you know, because the entities have this, and I know we have to work through the fear as well, but this is the programming. And this is something that I'm working on, but it's something I'm aware of. It's like understanding and remembering who we are, and we're not owned by these entities who have become parasitic and who don't have any light circulating through them. No, we are not owned property. We are God. We are God, that which we are. We are the eternal liquid living light. And everybody has that same opportunity if they wanted to rehabilitate and be rewired and enter into an organic rehabilitation process, such as the entities who keep perpetrating upon us. Okay, so this is for everybody. This isn't just for me as a human saying this, no. But I just wanted to make that clear, and that we need to reclaim and say, no, you don't own me. Take back our power and start and get to work.
Yeah, very important to keep clearing and claiming our space. You know, you have your home hub around you, you just keep that clear. You know, there's so much power in just using your voice and commanding your space. And even when you're out, you know, just keep, you know, commanding your space. It's really important.
My little chime will be, sorry?
I was just going to ask Chastity if she got any more tips there.
Oh, go ahead, Trinity. Go ahead. You were set.
I'll say, and then Chastity, you can, yeah, mine's only little, and it was like, just sort of like move on from what Sonia was saying, is it's dealing with the shadow. Again, I keep constantly kind of returning to this, but currently we are at the point of this Megiddo battle where our every memory from the past, from this life, every trauma, anything that we've recorded in our body, in our cells, everything is going to be amplified deliberately to create that kind of pain, trauma, chaos, you know, to create all these kind of reactive states. So all of us are going to be a little bit sensitive now. And when we are sensitive, it's almost like we are hyper, you know, we're at a state of hyper arousal because all these memories are coming, like Chastity said at the beginning, everything's beginning to surface now. Everything's coming from different live streams into this world. And the entities are capitalizing on the unhealed pain and amplifying it, bringing all these triggers into our life from past. You know, suddenly you're meeting people and they're triggering you. You're meeting, situations are happening, and it's all the same which was before. It's playing out now, more amplified, so that we could lose our sanity, lose our calm, lose everything to trigger us. So I just want to say yes, yes, and yes, we have to be aware that this is happening and not allow amplification of rage, amplification of anger, amplification of pain, because these are all unhealed traumas that are still here for us to heal finally complete them, bring them to 0 point, let go, release, move on. That's it. We have to complete these timelines, all these timelines now. So I'm just basically saying we can do it, and let's just be aware of it, and let's just bit by bit roll our sleeves and not be afraid of it, and just, okay, breathe in, breathe out, 0 point, forgive and forget. Okay, all these painful memories, forgive and forget. It's not going to happen again. That's it. Bringing it to the heart of the mother, to the heart, letting go and moving on, not allowing, like again, Chastity's example, I'm not choosing to step into this space of chaos. I'm going to leave the space, no matter how much I'm provoked, because we will be provoked. Look what's happening on a government level, how much they're poking, how much they're pushing humanity to see how far we can push you before you what
Right.
you're going to do. So we're going to give you masks now, and then what? And then we're going to give you distance apart to walk in shops. How far you're going to, you know, how far we can push you to obey us,
Right.
you know, until you stand up. And this comes again from pain. So we've got to face it and call upon the spirits of Christ. Stay in 0 point. We've got this heart. Over to Chastity. I've done my piece.
Yeah. You guys, each of you have just shared so much, and it's been really beautiful to be here. Thank you. I say extend grace to yourself. Extend grace to yourself. Be forgiving to yourself, because when we are forgiving to ourselves, we are then in turn forgiving to each other. Some tangible things that can be very helpful right now are staying away from drugs and alcohol, staying away from sugar. You know, these are parasitic entities, these are parasitic behaviors, and they'll find any way they can to get in and be controlling. And some of the easiest ways in are through our foods, which can actually help create our thought forms. Sugar, alcohol, drugs, these kinds of things can really create issues, even if you think you don't have an addiction to any of those. They can be twisted. And so I think that that's more of a safety measure that I feel pressed to share. But ask questions. You know, ask yourself questions. Why am I seeing this? What do you want me to do? Right? Know that when something is expressing itself, that it's expressing itself for a reason. Is this mine? That's a good question. Is this mine to process? Is this mine to deal with? And ask questions. And that's something that I found I am working on more. Like, had I not known a couple of days ago what was happening, I would have thought I was having severe anxiety, that there was something wrong with me. And instead I asked questions. What is this? Show me. Show me so I understand, right? And then that's when I get the messages. This is Beast Machine. This is Gravitron. This is you purging some planetary pieces because other people can't take this much, right? So know that we as starseeds and indigos and as people who are as far as we are, we're not any more advanced, right? We are just further in the process. And so,
Good point.
you know, we have these tools to say, we can take more load, right? We can do more of this. And so helping people understand, you know, this is why you're going through that, because perhaps your physical construct or your mental construct or your emotional construct can process more for those that will not be able to. And so learning to ask questions and staying in that 0 point and commanding, and not commanding from anger or frustration, commanding from love, right? Commanding from love through the spirits of Christ, I think makes a lot of the difference. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a very important point. You know, that's one thing that I had to learn. You know, when you is having voice and asking questions. so much more comes when you're asking questions, when you're asking the right questions. It never occurred to me before, with all that stuff happening to me, and then the more I was able to ask the right questions, and then not even expecting an answer necessarily, the answer might show up, maybe not on that day, but maybe weeks later or even months later, but an answer does come. And then it affects your mental body, because then it leads into right thinking and right action. Really, it's all a multifaceted. It's a very important point, is asking questions, for sure. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you for your tips. That's wonderful.
Just want to add very briefly to what Chastity mentioned about food. What came to me as I was listening is also because we are shifting density. So just saying that perhaps lighter foods more often rather than big foods, and again being sensitive to I don't want to eat. It's just like we're so conditioned that we have to have breakfast, dinner, 3 times a day, whatever. But now is the time to start being a bit more intuitive, more so about, because we are shifting. We may not need so much food so it just came to me to mention again to the listeners.
Thank you.
Are we ready to wrap up? And if so, Linda will take us through the wrap up, and Trinity would close us with a prayer, or do we want anything else to add?
Yep.
Recording.
Time to thank Chastity. Thank you for joining us. It's been really a pleasure to have you here today. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys so much.
A lot of very
I just wanted
helpful.
to share. Very. It's such an important subject at the moment. Wow. If you'd like to contact Chastity, she has a website called theartofmeta.com, and we'll add the link at the end of the podcast. And just to say that Chastity is a healer. She offers classes and personal sessions to assist us during the Ascension cycle, and she helps to awaken dormant memories and codes within the multi-dimensional selves, awakening the architect in each of us. And so, for more information, go to her website, and that's there. And then I think Trinity is going to close with our prayer.
Yes, I just also want to say thank you to Chastity, because a lot of very, very potent, interesting, kind of thought-provoking experiences you shared, and interesting kind of tips how to deal. So thank you. That's really a lot to ponder and contemplate. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you, Chastity, for joining with us today.
Yes, and just being yourself and just like speaking from your heart. Thank you. Beautiful. Beloved God and the eternal Christ families serving the law of one, please amplify our prayer request. As the avatars of Christ's Sophia and the truth spirit that we are, for one and for all, we pray for the sovereign rights of all humanity to be restored to God's natural laws on this earth. May all those that are awakening, feeling betrayed and confused by this anti-human war that is playing out now, we lovingly decree that their hearts be healed, their spirits reclaimed in the Holy Trinity, our beloved Mother and Father, the Christ Sophia that has returned to this earth. May we stand strong, with love and with courage, bringing coherence to every level of our consciousness, remembering the truth of the infinite God spark that we are. We pray on behalf of all children, of all humanity, that human trafficking and satanic ritual abuse continues to be revealed so that it can end completely. Please free humanity of the enslavement and entrapment from the psychopathic death cults and may disclosure be revealed soon. May the truth set us free. In unity we will prevail. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. Thank you, God.
That was like those little naps at the end. I zone out. Thank you, Trinity.
Thank you, Linda, for scribing beautiful, very, very powerful words. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you.
Well, thank you all for joining, and we hope you join us next time. And yeah, take what resonates and discard the rest. Much love.
Much love.
Namaste.
Thank you.
Much
Bye.
love. Bye.
Bye.